One of the most exciting games of the year is coming up. Packers versus Vikings. Home opener, US Bank Stadium. It's going to be a classic. So to start off, we have the injury report. The players that will not play at all will be the ones that will be listed most definitely. For the Vikings, the most notable ones, Shreve Floyd, one of the starting defensive tackle, is out. Xavier Rhodes is out. And Michael Pruitt, one of the backup tight ends, is out. And Matt Khalil is at questionable, which you could debate whether that's a good thing or not. So not very good right there, but everybody else looks like they'll be playing. So hopefully we get a good effort there. For the Packers, Josh Hawkins is out. Chris Banjo is doubtful. Sam Shields is doubtful. That'd be a big one for that to go out. And Jerome Elliott is doubtful. So the Packers have a few more that could go, but the Vikings have a few more that are already out. So as you see right here, I'm playing this on Madden just for some background stuff, and I updated as much as I could, or as much as I really cared. The Packers aren't as updated as maybe it would be good. They still have James Jones and a few other guys like that, but not too big of a deal. And the Vikings have Sam Bradford. I think his number's messed up, but I don't really care. Anyways, to get to the actual game, I'm thinking it's really a flip of a coin as far as who will win. All these division games are always to the wire, especially when these teams are so well coached. If you saw from the beginning, the overalls that I made up, the Vikings were just a 1 point higher than the Packers, which I think is fair, seeing that they won the division last year and they won the last meeting between the two. Now I know the Packer argument is always, well, they have Jordy Nelson now, so they'll be dominant. Well, Jordy Nelson plus Aaron Rodgers equaled about 200 yards passing last week, so I don't really see that point being that emphasized. Yeah, I know Jordy Nelson always finds a way to kill the Vikings, but I think our defense is so much improved that I don't think a single receiver will be able to do that amazing against us. We have too much depth at corner, so I think we'll do very good. And Aaron Rodgers didn't have that good of a game last meeting between the two. So at that aspect, we should have a really good chance to play good defensively. Now offensively for the Vikings, the biggest problem that we'll be having this week is running the football. Adrian Peterson was held in check. That's an understatement. He was dominated by the Titans. The whole Vikings running game couldn't get anything done. Adrian averaged about 2 yards per carry. Really a bad performance for Adrian. Yeah, the offensive line didn't do a good job either. But there are a few times Adrian could have cut back and made a big play, which usually happens when the back box is stacked against him. He might be held for 2 yards per carry the whole game, then find that 170-yard run to bring his whole day's average and total day's yardage up. But Adrian cannot do that. He had a few times where there was a hole open on the other side of the line, and he didn't cut back. He ran right to the guys. And me personally, I didn't see the biggest effort out of Adrian. You can see maybe a little rusty still. Even with injuries, I would not mind if Adrian played in preseason, because he usually starts out a little bit slow in the season. But that's just me. Now, as far as the passing game goes, one of the biggest questions is Sam Bradford going to start week 2. Now, Sean Hill did an admirable job against the Titans. That is the Titans. There's a reason they only won a couple games last year. They have a solid run defense, but their pass defense is not very good. So maybe against a pretty good pass defense like the Packers, Sean Hill would look like a backup quarterback or a bad backup quarterback, but Bradford might be able to do a pretty admirable job. So as long as Bradford can show up that he can know the audibles, can check out the plays, and hand the ball off to Adrian Peterson, he should be able to get the start. Now, this is by far the best team that Sam Bradford has had around him, and he's had pretty good yards in the past. He was the Rookie of the Year, of course. So you know he can get it done. Now the injury question with Bradford is really blown out of proportion. In my video of is Sam Bradford the savior? His injury, that's really just a joke in the NFL community, but he's really hasn't had that big of an injury problem really if you look at his numbers. He's had the 1 year where he was out all year, then another season where he just played about 10 games. But other than that, he's played every game he could have where he had a chance to start. So Sam Bradford is really not that injury prone as people say. And as far as the effectiveness, I really think it's Teddy Bridgewater that's not as fast, but a little bit stronger arm, and right now probably a little bit more accurate. So as far as bottom line for this year, Bradford probably has a higher ceiling than even Teddy. And I'm extremely high in Teddy. A lot of Viking fans just see the 14 touchdowns and think he's garbage. But if you see his improvements in the preseason, yeah, I know it's his preseason, but still, where he puts the ball, how much shit better is his throwing strength, all of that really shows off how much he improved in the offseason. He always thought he was a lot more built, and Bradford could be that and even a little bit better with how good our offense is. The Vikings offense used to be just Adrian Peterson, but with all the additions that Rick Spielman got, all the new draft picks, we have a really fine receiving core headed by a second-year player, Stephon Diggs, who had over 100 yards versus the Titans. Look for him to have a really good game again. The second, as far as targets, I'd expect Kyle Rudolph to have another big game as far as getting targeted, and hopefully he'll be on the same page and not get hit in the helmet with the ball like last game. And there's receivers that haven't been targeted as much. Charles Johnson is the deep threat guy. He's really good as well, used in the right way. Laquan Treadwell, still the rookie that we drafted, still hasn't he hasn't played at all in the regular season. Maybe look for him to get some snaps if we get into the red zone, but we didn't get it all in the Titans game. Look for Laquan Treadwell, Rudolph to be the primary targets in the red zone. Maybe get a few throwing balls on their way when we get within the 10-yard line. And other receivers, of course, the bust, and one of our rare busts in the number one pick with Rick Spielman, Cordell Patterson. Maybe we'll find a way to get him the ball a few times. It was maybe a little jet sweep like he did in the last game. He even caught a pass. Adam Thielen's been looking really, really good so far. So the way I think about the Vikings receivers, it's a bunch of number two-like guys. Maybe Diggs is fighting for a legit number one guy on any team. You could really make that case. He's not an Antonio Brown by any means, but he is a beast on his own. Being the second best receiver of last week, that really says something about him, right? Now, as far as the Vikings defense, missing Sharif Floyd and Xavier Rhodes is a really big hit on the defensive side. But we still have a really, really solid backups. Nothing to really worry about there. I'm worried more about the loss of Sharif Floyd because as in the defensive backfield, we have, of course, Trey Waynes, who played good against the Titans. Chance Newman will be there. We still have, of course, the captain and this year's second-round pick, Mackenzie Alexander. So really no worry there with Xavier Rhodes. Of course, we'd love to have him. When he's on, I really think he's one of the better corners in this league. Really, really underrated. One of the nice, tall, bump and run type corners in this game. So Xavier Rhodes is really good, but of course we still have Harrison Smith. Andrew Sandeo should still be starting, even though I would not be surprised if Jerome Hurst, one of our late round picks, that safety, about 6'4", you're just flying around in preseason, looking really, really good. Maybe he starts about halfway through the year, but we'll get there later. So defensively, I think we'll still be fine. Sharif Floyd, I'm sure Shamar Steppen will be playing a lot that game. Hammer and Tom Johnson will be getting the calls to be the other defensive tackle alongside Linval Joseph. So we should be doing fine there. So look for the Vikings to put a really a really good game plan together and give Aaron Rodgers a run for his money and maybe hold another 200-yard game. Now, how will this game end up? Like I said at the beginning, these divisional rivalry matches, especially when the teams are really close as far as how good they are, it really is a flip of a coin. But with the Vikings' advantages, with how much Aaron Rodgers struggled last game, it could be just a fluke, but I don't think there's any stretch of the mind saying the Vikings defense is worse than the Jaguars. But the Packers usually do find a way to show up somehow against the Vikings. So you can't really put that in too much account. It was week 1. They'll game plan a lot. They're familiar with their defense. But we're familiar for them as well, so I don't see them lighting them up too much. Look for under 250-yard game for Aaron Rodgers. Maybe throws a touchdown too. Maybe gets intercepted once or twice that game. Not a very impressive game. I look for him. Eddie Lacy has a chance. He could really be the X factor. I think if Eddie Lacy gets over 100 yards rushing on the day, the Packers win. So that's just too much of a dual threat to really cover on defense. In the first half of the Titans game, the Vikings' run defense really struggled. They picked up in the second half. Was that due to a bad offensive line play, or was it just the Vikings defense really picked it up? Zimmer put a lot of fault on himself for not calling as good of a game as he could have. So maybe it's that. So if Eddie Lacy gets over 100 yards, Packers win. I think the Vikings, how good does their offense have to be? Well, I think Adrian Peterson has to get, at the very least, over 80 yards on the day to give the Vikings a chance. Now, I'd say if he gets over 150 yards, the Vikings win. Passing, I think Sam Bradford gets a call. It's the first game at home. We don't want old Sean Hill. We want a quarterback that can scramble a little bit. Sam has plenty of legs over Bradford. Like I said, he's not as fast as Teddy, but he can still kind of sneaky fast. He can get the job done when need be. So look for Sam Bradford to get the call to start. It's going to be his first game, so I don't see him lighting up too much. Maybe about 220 to 250 yards against the Packers defense. If Sam Shields is out, look for maybe a 250 to 275 game. 2 touchdowns or so, maybe throw a pick. But he'll be very conservative, I think, with the way our offense is going to be called, because we want the Vikings defense to win the game. Now, another area of concern for the Vikings is, of course, Blair Walsh. What Blair Walsh are we going to get? Are we going to get first half versus the Titans Blair Walsh? Or are we going to get rookie year Blair Walsh where he's nailing everything? That's one area of concern, definitely. So if Blair Walsh can nail his kicks, the Vikings can run the ball all right, have a successful, maybe even conservative passing game, I think we have a very good chance of winning the game. So yeah, that's my predictions. If the Vikings get the job done in the air and ground like I think they will, the Vikings will win. Final score, maybe 24-17 Vikings. Tell me what you guys think down below if that seems about right to you, and comment if you think the Packers will win, or comment if you think the Vikings win, and tell me why. Do you think I know a lot of polls having the Packers, number 1 in the power rankings, and I don't see that. How beating the Jaguars makes you number 1. I think they should be the Patriots, because they just beat the Cardinals with the second string quarterback and no Gronk. That's just me. So yeah, comment down below. Who do you think's gonna win? And we'll see you guys in the next Minnesota Vikings video. See ya.